kind of builds momentum for statewide action. So the discussion about, we've been doing just a lot of research. Governor and governor staff have been talking with others about their experience in what difference do mandates make in use rates. I think the governor's been super clear all along that this is strongly recommended and one of the most important things we can do, and that he believes that Minnesotans really need to see the value in this and own it, and not simply as a matter of mandates. But we are looking, digging out data as we speak on whether the addition of a mandate really drives usage rates in a different direction, and are there variations between statewide approaches and local approaches. So just a continued discussion, and as per some of the other questions, there are a number of issues that the governor's looking at around the data, around kind of next questions about the schools and the like. So I think you might expect to see some of these things getting kind of considered sort of in relationship to each other over the coming couple of weeks.
Thank you again. Operator, we have time for one more question.
The next question comes from the line of Jill Burkham from Star Tribune. You may now begin to ask your question.
Hi, I joined late, so I'm sorry if you've addressed this, but I'm wondering if there have been any outbreaks in Minnesota daycares, and what does the data about childcare tell us about the risk of opening Minnesota schools this fall?
Chris, I'll ask you to take the lead on that one.
Sure. Just a couple of things. First of all, just by way of background, the Council of State and Territorial Epidemiologists, which I'm sure no one ever thinks about except us, but that's the group that collectively helps to define, make case definitions for various diseases and things. The CSTE definition for an outbreak is 2 or more cases in a childcare. So with that in mind, we have a very low threshold. And if we look at all childcare settings, we've had 125 programs that have had at least one case. 30% of those, or 38 programs, have had 2 or more confirmed cases. So that would mean, an outbreak. And only 8 of those programs have had 5 or more confirmed cases. Most of the cases have been among staff, 66%. And we have not had a lot of evidence to date that the staff infections were the result of transmission from kids or between people in the center, rather than being an exposure in the community. So we have seen cases in childcare. We don't have a lot of evidence that the transmission is occurring in childcare. It's more in the adults. And I can say that if you recall from a week or so ago when we were talking about some of the cases that we were seeing in young adults who were associated with bars or other establishments, we noted that several of those individuals had reported working in childcare settings. So just kind of giving you all that information.
And then can you talk a little bit about, does that I guess indicate whether or not we could open up schools? How valuable is this information in making that decision?
We would be looking at it, and I think as the commissioner alluded to, the Department of Health has a role in providing, obviously, data and our expertise in terms of disease transmission, but there are a number of factors, including the fact that schools are really essential, that are all being weighed. But certainly we're looking at what we're seeing in childcare settings, what we're seeing with youth sports, any of those activities to see what kind of transmission are we seeing and how does that inform what we recommend for schools. So it's all very important. And in this case, I would say that this is positive. This is a fairly low number, I would say, of situations with cases, given the very, very many childcare settings that there are in the state.
Okay, thank you, Chris.
That's all the time we have for the call this afternoon. If you did have a question you were not able to get to during the call, please feel free to reach out to the MDH Communications Office this afternoon. Have a good day, and we will be back with you again Friday.
Please conclude.
That was state health leaders giving the latest on their response to COVID-19 in Minnesota.